Hello, and welcome to Literary Notes, a podcast by the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. I'm your producer, Nathan Ureta. The end of winter might be in sight, but that doesn't mean the end of cold, rainy days here in the Pacific Northwest. And what better way to warm you up during those days than a hot bowl of soup? Caroline Wright started making soup for her friends during COVID lockdowns, and eventually her operation got so popular she turned it into a business, complete with a cookbook called simply Soup Club. She sits down with library volunteer Beth Larimore to talk about her favorite soup ingredients, working for Martha Stewart, how her cancer diagnosis shaped her approach to cooking, and much more. Here's their conversation.
My name is Beth Larimore. I'm a volunteer here at WTBBL, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Caroline Wright. Caroline's the author of numerous cookbooks, including one that I was the audiobook narrator for at WTBBL called Soup Club. Welcome, Caroline. It's great to
Thank you for
see
having me. Good to see you.
We were talking about this before, but I met Caroline once before, about 6 weeks ago, and when I found out I had the opportunity to do this interview, I looked into your website and was reading up on you a little bit and saw that you had events at farmers markets around in the Seattle area. So I decided to show up at the one in my neighborhood. And so, I introduced myself to Caroline and kind of loitered around watching her in her element. And I thought that was really great. It was fun to see you with your soup and kind of the way that people were drawn to you and your soup. Like, everyone would come up and say, "Are you selling? Can I buy some soup?" And you were like, "No, but I'm giving away soup."
That's my preferred dynamic. Giving away soup is the best.
Yeah, I felt like everyone was just so pleasantly surprised. And one of my favorites was like a mom and her young son walked by and kind of like were looking at what was happening and smelling the smells, and then they passed by, and then they came back like 5 minutes later, like, "Well, we just have to see what's going on here."
Soup does that to people, I feel like. Yeah.
Well, we find ourselves, we're in Seattle here in January. It's definitely soup
weather.
I know.
For sure. It's not a coincidence that I do this 9 months of the year because there's a long stretch of soup weather here.
Yes. I was just thinking when I recorded your book, it was a hot summer. So I felt like I would, just try to get in the soup mood. And I was like, it's not really a soup day, but
yes, I don't do summer soups. I know they exist. I hear they exist, but I'm a hot soup gal, not a chilled soup gal.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe I would ask you because I'm personally curious. Can you tell us a little bit about like your early life in food? Like, how did you get started as a professional food person?
Oh, well, I guess I always sort of cooked. And I always loved exactly like what you described, that like food has this capacity to draw people to it and, is a point of conversation. It's a reason for people to get together and just like have a good time. And that I think I was drawn to it for that reason, because like those are all things that are lovely and feel lovely. And then I happened to go to college in Paris.
Wow.
And so kind of a stereotypical story, being an outsider and witnessing how, their food traditions as a culture, like the daily shopping rituals. And I happened to live off of a market street and saw people like, baguettes under their arm looking for lettuce. And I mean, I had been a vegetarian for a while as a kid, animal rights and the protest that is involved in like early teenage years. Pretty typical stuff there too. But so I had an affinity for vegetables and cooking properly, I think, more than maybe some. I never really ate like boxed or canned food, even though both my parents were working parents. And there was a rule in my house that we weren't allowed junk food, but only if I like made it myself. So I could make sweets. So I like became a baker, because cakes especially are things that people gather around.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I consider myself both a cook and a baker, because I then went to culinary school after my literature study in Paris. I stayed in France and went to culinary school there.
Wonderful.
And then I found out, once you get into the food world, you like find out that it's a world like any other. And I discovered jobs that I never knew existed, like being a food editor, like someone who writes articles and like styles food, like that's a job. Someone who makes food look good for magazines and things. And just like all of it, the more and more I pulled at a thread, the more I was like, oh, this is like real art and real storytelling exists here, not just like cooking. And it's just like an avenue with which to connect to people. And so I really identified with a lot of the facets of that world.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you didn't have like a restaurant
No,
career?
no, I have worked in restaurants because to graduate from culinary school, we had to work in a Michelin-starred restaurant to be able to graduate.
My.
That was part of it.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds fancy, but really I was living in horse stables at like the age of 20, cutting up vegetables to really precise degrees and sorting through lettuce, like really, grunt work stuff. But, I did get to work the line for like a good 2 days when the main French-speaking men would like step out of the way, you know what I mean? It helped that I was blonde and 20, though, I will say that.
Yeah, doesn't hurt.
Yes, it doesn't hurt. And then, then after that, I went and worked for Martha Stewart in her magazine world for a little while.
Interesting.
But in order to get that job, I had to work in restaurants for about 6 months. So there was a period between culinary school and working for Martha Stewart where I went and worked in Birmingham, Alabama, and was like an intern for the Time Inc. magazines there, and got like to cut my teeth and test kitchens and see what that was all about. And it was really super fun.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
What did you do in the Martha Stewart world?
I was a food editor. That was so what food editors do is basically everything from like idea to page. So, writing short. It wasn't the magazine I worked for didn't have articles in it really. It was really a cookbook that we produced every single month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it got me like in the production piece of writing recipes, and it really like instilled that language into me like a second language, honestly. Like I can write a recipe very fluidly and easily. And so the pacing of that like also really helped informed my sort of standards and diligence of just writing a cookbook. It's that's why I have so many. It's like it's something that feels familiar and comfortable to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like, yes, you have a couple of cookbooks from maybe the earlier days before Pre-Soup Club. And
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I saw a Catalan
Yes.
food one. Yeah, and some books for children as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
Yep. So how that all fits into my life, it goes, so I was a cookbook author. I worked for Martha Stewart, worked in magazines. And then I moved away from New York. So sort of like in New York was really where it was all happening at that time. Now, it's changed a little bit, but that's really where it was. And when I moved away from New York, I started like my cookbook career proper. It gave me the excuse and time and space to do that. And so I like wrote a couple of random cookbooks, all subjects I really loved, but in my mind, they're still very editorial projects. It's like they're basically long form articles in my mind. And that's just sort of like my food editor training. Yeah. It's like things that I really wanted to dig into in my earlier work, but just like didn't have the actual physical space to do it, or my ideas were just like too broad. So that was really exciting. And then when I was working on that Catalan cookbook, I was diagnosed with brain cancer. And it sounds heavy, and I'm sorry if that feels heavy to tell you, but I'm, 9 years out, and it's really like been incorporated in my life in such a way that doesn't feel heavy for me to talk about. It really is like a plot point as I'm talking to you about it now. So when that happened, I sort of stepped away from what I had seen or thought my career might be. And I wanted to focus on like the depth of what I was choosing to do with my work and time, just because it all sort of refocused everything.
I bet.
And that's where actually the children's books came in. Because when I was in treatment, I had this idea for a children's book about a mom dying, actually. Just what we were telling my children, like, and I couldn't find a book that existed like I wanted there to be for me to read to my children. So I wrote it instead. And that was my first children's book. And then it turns out that children's books about death are like, they're great and really important, but I really wanted to write other children's books too.
That makes sense.
That weren't about death. So I wrote a couple about cake and baking because that's like my thing. And then I fell into soup because when I was sick, people brought me soup when I was sick. And I know that it's like an easy sentence to say, but it was really profound. I wasn't really seeing people at the time. So having strangers, like leave soup on my porch with like notes for well wishes and it really meant a lot. And then at the time too, I was like doing all of these things like walking a lot and lots of kind of normal things, but when you're working all the time you don't really do it. Just like going to bed on time and drinking water, and I was like seeing a homeopath someone who could like look at my body differently than my doctors could, and I was doing all kinds of things. And so that in conjunction with the soup, I just like got better when all my doctors were thinking I should be getting worse, and even my blood, like they were doing blood tests every week and they just were shocked I did not look like someone who was going through chemo and radiation. And some of that like hope, and it just was like a companion moment to eating all of this stranger's soup. And so I really feel like there was kind of a superhero moment. I just realized I said the word super, and it made me embarrassed. But there's like kind of a superhero moment there where like I feel like it infused in me this like love of soup and healing, and I just see it really differently than other people because since I wasn't seeing people, but I was eating their soup, and I'm trained as someone who can like look at a plate of food and see things that other people don't see, like maybe where this recipe comes from, or like this is a commentary on this type of cuisine, which actually comes from these places. And so when I was eating soup that belonged to other people, I would like imagine like, oh, they made this soup for their family and they just like gave me some of that's like just such a magical, special thing. Or like their knife cuts are a little bit wonky. Maybe their kid was pulling on their apron. You know what I mean? I can just imagine funny things that people can't. And so soup really took on this personality for me. And then, when I started making soup for my friends that's what I decided to do. When I survived the year I was given to live, I decided to make soup for people who made soup for me. And then it just kind of like went from there. And it was really exciting and wonderful.
Yeah. Wow. And you said you're 9 years?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This February. I call my brain surgery day, my rebirth day. Like I celebrate my brain surgery day every year. Wow. And to honor it, I used to host parties, and then COVID happened, and then now I'm like, busy. My kids have soccer games and things, and and it's also just happens to be on a week that is a break during school too, which is really tricky. So we're like often not around anymore. But what I do every year, regardless, and it's been since the beginning, I used to throw parties, bake cakes, and make soup, and have people over, and just like, my community would come back into my house and we would like all have toasts and like just cry and hug each other and remember like this moment where everybody just like got to be their best selves, and I healed, and it's so beautiful. And as a party favor for those events, my rebirthday party, I would give bracelets, like a leather cord strung with a number of beads of years that I'm celebrating. Wow. And so I still do that. I'm like making like 100 rebirthday bracelets right now. And it's something kind of like a rosary, like I'm counting these beads, and it takes a very long time to string 9 beads on 100 bracelets and just like physically make them. And it just lets me sit with this piece of my life and have this ritual that's really special. And that's the story of the book that you read.
And I should say you talk about a lot of it in the book. Wow. Also, I was going to say, you mentioned like imagining the people who made the soup for you. I felt like that kind of resonated with me. Last night I was looking through the book again, and the photos I thought really struck me again this time. They're like very intimate pictures of, you don't say who they are, but I assume your friends or something. But yeah, it's kind of family portraits around the dinner table and the stove. And yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I love that you picked up on that. Yeah. So, my background as a food editor.
Yeah.
So you must understand that I pay attention to how food stories are told, and I'm also a food stylist, so you also have to understand that pictures of soup, they're one of the hardest foods to style because it always ends up being about the bowl or the napkin, and that really bothers me as someone who genuinely loves soup now,
Yeah.
And I did not want to have how the book arose was when I started making soup for my friends. I was very vulnerable because I hadn't really cooked in a while, and I had significantly changed my diet, and I was really worried about being irrelevant to this career that I had loved so much, and the fact that my personal eating, is really restricted now. I happen to follow an anti-inflammatory diet, so I don't eat gluten, sugar, lots and lots of things that were ingredient lists from my former projects, And I really thought that meant that I was done or that I couldn't do what I love to do so much. And so I had a pity party for a long time. I really did. It was as much of a reckoning as kind of a cancer diagnosis would be, because I was, had built my career and loved it so much. And for example, the Catalan book that you mentioned earlier, that felt like a dream project. In my 20s, imagining going to Spain and working with a chef and telling his story. And, it just was such a dream. And I was like, oh, okay, I can't do things like that anymore because I eat like a weirdo. And, I'm not as general as I used to be. And after my pity party, I decided, hey, this is silly. What you have is a unique food perspective and just make it fun. And so I decided to celebrate restriction instead of, hide from it. And so I thought of the most restricted diet I could think of, in addition, because soup is basically gluten-free, sugar-free, nut-free. That's all really easy to do with soup. But vegan hit me. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not vegan, but let's just let's go with it. And it made sense for Seattle and my friends and things like that. So I just started to make vegan soups, and I decided to turn inside out what the expectation for vegan soup would be. You think vegan soup and you think, oh, I'm going to be hungry afterwards, or there's nothing fun about this. It's going to be a bunch of lentils and it's going to taste like cardboard. You know what? I'm just saying stereotypes, but they're real, Yeah. And sad that that's what people think, But so I decided to, like I said, turn it inside out. And I took all that same creative energy that I took to write stories. And, I threw it into making these recipes. And it was me cooking from the hip, by which I mean I would come up with an idea and then I would make all of this soup over a weekend and then bring it to people. So it was whereas my life before was making something, writing it and producing it, and then 6 months later, maybe someone will cook it. And then even if they cook it, they might not even reach out. I just didn't have feedback on what I was doing. And cookbooks are even longer than that. They take years to produce and to come out and all that stuff. So cooking from the hip and having people, eat my food and then send me selfies of them with soup, make soup love poetry, paint soup paintings because they were so in love with the soup, that kind of thing. It was just it was so amazing. It was another life source coming my way, that my creativity, the silly, weird things I was doing with my soup, breaking all the rules, was really people were really responding to it, people I love most, and just discovering how creative my community is, and they're supporting my creativity. It was just such another magical period. And having been a food producer too, I was a TV producer for a while. I just saw a really good story in that, and so I was I'm going to make a book. I'm going to do it. I soft pitched it to some editors and friends of mine, and I just saw what they saw. They saw that bowl napkin problem, They just saw a boring single subject vegan soup book, And I was like, that's not what this is. It's weird. garden fun? And it's going to have art in it. And, like they didn't respond similarly. But so I was like, great, I'm going to do this myself. I know paper. I know all. And so the black and white photography, which you referenced, I specifically did not want to have a single picture of soup in the whole book. Like no hero photographs of soup, because it's crass, a little crass to say, but it just like at best looks maybe a little like vomit, like it's like you really can't tell the ingredients in it. It's hard to tease out, and oftentimes it's like not so colorful. You're trying to garnish with something to make it look like anything, and I did not want any of those elements, because it's like feels so quotidian for this like thing that I love so much, that I feel like holds so much, meaning, but soup is like a mood. It's like a feeling. You decide to make soup because you're in the mood to do it, and the weather, and you have people, whatever it is, or you're feeding your family. And often it comes from a place of like, it's a grandmother's recipe. There's like such emotion in it too. I swear, I know I talk and think about soup a lot more than most people. I'm aware of how weird this sounds. But so for me, having just like then a picture of it looking not good is not something I really wanted. So that's why I decided it had to be paintings. So my friends who had made like soup paintings, one of my very good friends had done my children's book. And she's a vegan, and she was in soup club. And so she was like making paintings just for fun. And then I was like, hey, can we formalize this? Can I like swap soup for like your art? And then this photographer that I met, like a random guy that was like a neighbor, he actually came over to take pictures of me for a story that had been written. And I was like, hey, man, do you like soup? I'm actually looking for someone to do something that's just really random, and it's so specific, like just black and white photography. And it's actually not about the soup. It's not, I don't want a food photographer. I want a people photographer. So I had all these rituals surrounding soup when people would bring it to me. And I was hearing from people that they were doing the same about my soup. So I wanted to show the rituals of my like friends bringing my soup into their home, and like how they gathered around it and what it meant to them. And so that's what the like photo kind of essays sort of whatever are. And it was just fascinating to go into people's homes and see, and it was all very different, like a grad student eating it while like studying, or a family, or someone taking it hiking. Those are all it was all very, very sweet.
Yeah. And yes, I should have mentioned the art, the paintings of the soup are gorgeous.
Well, that's what, a painting, it conveys mood, it conveys emotion, and that's really what I wanted.
Yeah. I also really enjoyed reading the each recipe starts with a little haiku, a little poem, like you mentioned. Yeah,
that's what I said. A friend of mine was writing poetry, and a haiku is so perfect because you think about it's like just the most perfect words. It's like the smallest amount of words that are all perfect, that describe the thing so concisely. That's lovely. But also haiku traditionally are meant to root something in a season and in a time, and that's exactly what soup does. So yes, it seems like a weird and distant thing, but actually it worked out, I think, really well. And I love just that because, yes, practical details of, this is where you can find this ingredient, or this is where the recipe comes from. Like, yeah, that's nice. But I don't actually think it's like to the experience the recipe or the soup. It just doesn't evoke the dimensions that I feel like it can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really fun cookbook. Yeah.
Thanks.
And yeah, like you said, pretty zany. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my soups are like that too.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your other book sitting in front of us. Seconds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so then I thought I'd said everything I could possibly say about soup. Oh my gosh. Because the first book has 80 or so soup recipes. Yeah. Each recipe can be made on the stovetop and then in an Instant Pot as a variation, just to, tip my hat at the fact that there exists Instant Pots that came out and are really, really popular. And all my soups use dried beans, so I think that's really helpful. Anyway, so I thought that I was like, oh my gosh, what am I ever going to say again? And I feel like I've done the thing. I'm pretty done with that. But then I was thinking Soup Club, the book, I made it. overfunded it on Kickstarter. Deborah Madison found it. She's like a big deal in the cookbook world. She's a like grand dame of vegetarian cooking specifically. And Simon & Schuster found it. All these amazing things happened at one time. And so I sent the book out into the world, like my Kickstarter version, and then basically just held on to all of those copies that I had and couldn't sell them because Simon & Schuster made their own version.
Oh, I see.
And so Simon & Schuster's national version had a lag. We added some pages, a couple recipes, some salads, and like a couple breads. And so there was a lag, and it came out. It ended up dropping like on bookshelves for the pandemic. And so what was nuts is that people found Soup Club, the book, during the pandemic. And so I was getting all these emails of people saying like, wow, your story of becoming a soup cook and saving your life, being like getting healthy through making soup, becoming a soup cook, it's so amazing. I did the same thing during the pandemic. And stories of like people bubbling with like other nearby families, like all kinds of crazy things, like delivering soup to other people, dropping soup on other people's porches, things like that.
Wow.
And so it felt like really resonant of, I really wanted to tell other soup cooks stories of using the first book to kind of heal a part of themselves, develop a community, all the same themes, but just kind of like twisted and made new and fresh again. In so much as that the focus of the sequel is not on my soup club, but on people using the first book and becoming soup cooks themselves. And so the photo essays, it's so cool. I have my best friend is a fine art photographer here in town. She couldn't work on the first book because she was busy having babies. But, the second one, she was like, oh, let's just like travel around the country and like go meet these cooks and like tell their stories. And so I would ask the featured cook to write a short essay. And then she would, shoot their process and their favorite soup and them making their favorite soup and just kind of get vignettes of the story. And so that's the black and white photography, which is hilarious because she's like a very talented photographer who like really relishes in color. And she was like, ooh, this is like a weird muscle to flex for you, but I'll do it because it's us, So it was really fun. And so that's what we did. We literally like traveled to a couple different cities and met with these cooks that reached out to me.
Wow.
And the book tells their stories. And then it's all weird recipes. And actually, I would say that they're like kind of weirder because the first book was me just playing with what vegan soup recipes can be. Second book is like me taking the knowledge of what all of my like soup members and like soup club members and like friends and what feedback I've gotten and just deciding to get even like weirder and try harder things. Like, for example, I don't eat corn. And obviously I don't eat dairy. Now I'm a vegan. But there's like a vegan corn chowder that like plays with different vegetables that offer the same like sweetness and crunch that corn. And it's like, it's really hard to explain. Lots of things that are hard to explain. Or I have like a French onion soup in this book, which is like really crazy when you think about it. French onion soup is like beef broth. That's like pretty much what it is.
And cheese.
And cheese. And that's how you sell it. And so that's my point is that like I pushed the envelope a little bit more to see what other soups I could make successful, what classic or beloved soups that I could twist and make my own and figure out my own way through. And so I'm really proud of Seconds. Also, I just won an award.
Congratulations.
Hey, thanks. It's like actually my first book that's ever won anything. I'm really jazzed. It won the IPPY Best Cookbook of, it was 2025, right? I think it was 2025. But it's so exciting. It was very new. It was, a couple months old. But now I have a reprint of the books with a fancy seal on the front.
Ooh.
So yes, and now it's fully back in stock locally, and yeah.
Oh, fantastic. One thing I thought I wanted to say was, when I was reading your recipes and I would tell people, or people in my life would ask, what are you reading these days at the library? And I'd say, I'm actually reading a cookbook, and it's about soup, or it's all soup recipes. And I would say, well, I think it's all vegan, but it doesn't, I don't know, it didn't feel preachy, I think.
Oh, hey. That's a big compliment.
Yeah. I think in your vignettes, sometimes you would say, like you could add rotisserie chicken to this, or I felt like it's very permissive. I liked that attitude. Yeah.
Well, that came from, I actually got some heat from that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm into it. Because that was for me coming from the perspective that Soup Club, the book, was telling the story of my Soup Club. And very few people in my Soup Club are like hardcore vegans. Mm-hmm. Most of them are just people who want to get like more vegetables in their lives and like they'll whatever. It's like, it's a casual thing. And so I treated it casually, like that's how it lives in my mind. Veganism wasn't like a hard thing. I mean, my soups happen to be vegan, all plant-based, but not like you could put a fried egg on top or and for me that it didn't feel sacrilegious because that's not the angle I was coming at it from. And I was trying to honor like the experience of how my Soup Club members use these things. And that's how I talk about them. I send out emails with every soup that I make, whatever. That's my Soup Club. Different topic. But so for me, I was just representing that. And then the internet was like, ooh, you're not being a good vegan if you show, I'm so offended by the egg in this photo. And I had my moment of, indignation. However, I decided like, I don't want to put, it is a plant-based book. I don't even call for like eggs or anything else. And and I didn't want to put off people who could otherwise like access these recipes and be excited about them if what I was doing in any way was misrepresenting what the content of the recipes actually is, So for the second one, I was very careful, like anytime like cheese or, sour cream as a garnish or anything, I'm like, it's vegan sour cream. And it's all done through paintings too, but anytime, definitely if it's referenced in the recipe, I was very careful to mention vegan, dairy products or whatever. And it's not that I wanted it to be preachy. That's not my deal at all. It's just, I want people who do arrive at veganism for like, moral and political reasons. I want them to be able to look at these and be like, hey, these are fun and weird and cool, Thanks.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah. Tell us more about Soup Club, the business. Yeah.
Oh, I'm like a real soup lady. That's just like what I do now. And then I'm soup lady 9 months of the year. And then the summers I'm off with my kids and I, write books. Other books, Yeah, so I make like 120 quarts of soup a week. Each week, I literally use both Soup Club, the first book, and Seconds is the name of the sequel. I use those two books as like, I do like a greatest hits of both of them. And like, I shuffle them in weird ways to just like kind of create a new roster. And every week is a different soup. And so if you're in Soup Club for a couple years, you may have your favorite soup might not come up again until next year, or maybe it'll take a year off and a similar soup will be in its place, in that same time season or whatever. Like maybe I'll use this other cabbage soup recipe. And so like, I just choose kind of like a mix tape or something, to show my age. Something like that where you're just like doing this for a friend, like rise and fall of like things that are familiar as well as things that are like a little bit of a stretch of maybe you haven't tasted these flavors together before. I try to, play it like that. And so, every week is new. I make and deliver the soup and I bring it to other people's porches. And so I basically do what people did for me. And what's so cool now that it's like a real business and I'm not just making soup for my home for people who made soup for me. Now it's like open to the public. I get to make soup for patients in residence at Fred Hutch Housing. I donate a portion of what I make to them every week. And so these are people who come from far away for cancer treatment to Seattle because of the resources we have here, but they don't have their communities. And I feel like that's kind of a representation of sort of how I felt. I happened to be in Seattle and had the resources of the care that I had, but I had just moved here, so I didn't really have friends when I when I got sick, actually. And so all these people who were bringing me soup really were strangers. Some of them I did know through my kids' like preschool and stuff, but very few. We swiftly became friends because it's such a vulnerable state of existence in that moment. But yeah, so it's just so special that I get to do that for other people, and I get to be the stranger that brings them soup every week. It's so much fun.
That's incredible. Wow. And so how does it work? People then subscribe to the...
It's like a CSA.
Yeah.
So like it has 2 terms. If you really want to know the rules,
I do.
I can tell you what's on the website, which is Slurp Soup Club, by the way. We have merch. I mean, I have merch. There's no we. I'm the only person doing all of this. I make the soup and I get in my car and I deliver it. And I listen to audiobooks, so I just have an appreciation and an idea of what it's like for you to just sit in a studio and record my book. I really have questions for you, but I will save them for after this taping. But so it's just me and it's 2 terms. September to May is the whole year, the whole season. But it splits in January. And I sort of ask that people hang for a whole term because it can't go to month. People, I think that's an instinct. People, I'll give it a try. I'll come in for a month. And I love that idea. But practically speaking, since I'm the only one doing it, just like fewer moving pieces where I have to like comings and goings, tracking all that kind of stuff is easier just practically, but also just for like yields wise of like adjusting my orders of vegetable poundage, calculating all that stuff, like keeping it the same, knowing that the only time I really have to like retrain myself of when a change happens is like once a year. So that was kind of selfish, but it has worked out well. So yeah, it's September to January and then January to May. And, it runs off of a wait list and, that's how.
And so there's everyone gets the same soup that week?
Yeah, everyone gets the same. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, maybe if people like, can you offer 2 soups? And we could, I was like, no, see, that's the thing. It's choosing, it's choice. And right now, I think I told you this off air, certainly when we met, but I work out of, I don't have my own kitchen. I work out of a whiskey bar during the hours that they're closed. So I'm like a basically pack in, pack out girl, Wow. So like, it's important that I come in with, 50 pounds of carrots. I use all 50 pounds of carrots in those 2 days. So I'm not like using their refrigerator space or, it's all pretty well orchestrated for the practical pieces, but also just like logistically, I just can't really make 2 types of soup or be a restaurant. So that's why it's a subscription service. And that's also why I wouldn't really make it for grocery stores or anything. That's always the further question people ask. I don't have an interest in that at the moment. At the model that exists now, it's just 1 soup every week. Also, what's really bonkers is that people don't know I don't tell them what soup is coming next. It's like a fun, weird surprise. And what's cool is like I'm like people's soup friend, like they just like start to trust my taste and they're like excited. They don't know what's coming next and they're just like excited to see what it is. And I really love living in that like kind of surprise party life, It's really great.
The soup fairy.
Yeah, I guess I am a bit of a soup fairy.
Do people choose like how much they
Yeah. So it's 1 or 2 quarts of soup with or without. I don't make the bread. I during the pandemic, one of the only benefit really I can think of that wasn't horrible is the fact that restaurants weren't really like using their vendors as much. So I like got in with some pretty serious like vendors in town, and I serve the best bread that I can think of in town. Do you know Seawolf Bakery?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's 1 or 2 quarts of soup with or without Seawolf bread, and then package of 6 cookies, which I do make my chocolate chip cookies. Those have followed me around throughout my career. I made them just after my start at Martha Stewart.
Yes, you do. You have your cookie recipe and a page of cookie tips, I would say. So yeah, it struck me as that must be a big part of your brand.
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah. I don't think of it as a brand so much as like it's how I make friends. I don't know. My cookie, when I was like a early food person, and maybe I'm just odd, I don't know, but I always just wanted to be like the person with a really great chocolate chip cookie recipe, just like a solid one. And so I went about like figuring that out a really long time ago. like researching a couple of different ones that people really liked and saw what they had in common, and like just really like figuring out what qualities I really wanted in my own cookie. And I landed on this one that I made up, and it's the one that I like bring as a hostess present for people, or like welcome to your new home, or happy giving birth to a baby or birthday or whatever. And it's just like how I communicate like love and give that feeling of gathering to people. And just, my kids still love them. You just like cannot tire of this cookie. And now I'm really embarrassed that I didn't bring you cookies today. I did bring you soup, but I did not bring you cookies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, it's just like a magical recipe. I really do think of it as like this old friend recipe. So when I started thinking, honestly, the idea to make soup for people who made soup for me, I was like, I remember the moment distinctly. I woke up from a dream in the morning, and I was like, what am I going to do? I've survived the year I was given to live. My editors in New York think I'm like dead or dying, and so they don't want to give me like rigorous work of making a cookbook, and I just don't really feel relevant. I need something. And then it just like soup hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was like, I'm going to make soup for people who made that. Just feels like, whether or not money is involved, I just really felt like just doing something you love like is the right thing to do, and just good things follow that. And I've lived that way. That's how I lived my cancer treatment year, of like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I am going to listen really closely to what my like inner voice, be really quiet and just like listen to what it's saying to me, and just follow the thing that feels like the quiet, good choice. And so it was never, I want to write books and have a soup business. Like that wasn't what I woke up thinking. It was just a small thing. Like, let's make a difference in like, let's offer payback in kind of what people gave me, and like do the literal thing. And in doing the thing that people did for me, I really like developed, it took me back to the career that I love so much. It like all really like wove together. It was not really planned. I just, once I start firing on like one cylinder, all of them kind of caught on, and then it just became this other thing. And now I'm busier than I've ever been. And it's just such a joyful thing that I get to do, really. And I marvel at it, like this thing that came into my life of, and yes, it's gathering people around my cancer, but in like the best and most beautiful parts of my cancer, like the parts that made people, like the kindness of strangers, like that's the part, not the like cancer itself. And I can hold all of it. Like, I am not immune. People are like, oh, they want to think that because I'm able to do this physical hard work, that I'm like somehow safe or something from my cancer. I'm 9 years out from a crazy cancer, but my cancer does have an incurable 100% rate. It's like incurable, and it has an 100% recurrence rate over time. So the fact that I'm 9 years out is already really crazy. So I'm in a different category. And I just choose to still like, okay, don't listen to the noise. Just keep listening to yourself. If you're feeling good today, then just like feel good today and don't ask questions. Keep living your life. So I don't think about my cancer or like dying acutely like as I used to, and it just lives in a very different place. And I focus on being a mom and like the life affirming things that I do. But I have lived through that, and I do hold that is a part of my life. I still get scans. I'm still technically a brain cancer patient. But so when people find my story and it unlocks in them a hope that, like, it unlocks something in them that already exists. It's like a really strong person who looks at their cancer differently or whatever. I get to be the person who, like, it often comes at my soup stands when I'm raising money for glioblastoma research, where I like hand them a cup of soup and we just like cry about their astrocytoma. We talk, and I just like completely understand what they're going through. And it's just such a gift that I get to be this like conduit for people sort of back to themselves, like a part of themselves that they didn't see. And that soup gets to be part of that is just like really, really special. And I'm very honored that brings meaning to something that feels very confusing. Like, why did I get cancer? Like, why am I 9 years out when other people aren't? Like it's a really odd, and I'm unaffected, which is the other weird thing. Like I had a year of chemo. I had a craniotomy. A lot of people who go through similar things, like it was on my motor cortex. Like I was told I probably wouldn't be able to walk. And like I've written books since then. I don't have language deficiencies. I don't have like a limp. I have no physical, complications. I'm incredibly lucky. And I get to be here for my 2 kids and my family. So, none of it makes sense. I just am deciding to do the good thing, the right thing that feels good to me. So I've written 2 books about it.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, this hardly holds a candle, but I, in preparation for this, I thought, I should make another one of Caroline's recipes. So I made a soup a few weeks ago, and it was really fun. It was the first time I had cooked with kabocha squash.
Ooh.
And I bought fresh curry leaves as well. That was the first time I had cooked with those.
Oh, you made one of my favorites.
Yes, it was fantastic. But I had this giant pot of soup, and I put some in a container for the week of lunches, and I put another container in the freezer, but I still had a lot, and I thought, okay, well, I think Caroline would be proud if I took some over next door to my neighbors. So I did that, and I just said, haven't seen you guys in a while. Happy New Year. How are you doing?
That's the
And
best.
they were shocked and pleasantly surprised, and it was great.
In seconds, I felt like I'd already said everything I could say for Soup Club. So seconds, I have like rules, commandments, and one of them is like the pithy little things. Where is it? I said, give soup away. Number 10 is give soup away. It will change your life. And I really do believe that. And I love that you just were like, I have leftovers. Like I don't want these to go to waste for me and my family or my freezer or whatever. Give it away.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do. I love it.
It, wasn't any extra work for me.
Exactly.
And it was like made their day. It was really cool. Yeah.
And everybody loves soup.
Yeah.
I mean, most people really love soup. Some people who think they don't like soup just haven't tried the right soup.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted you to talk about, when we met at the farmer's market, you were talking a bit about how you don't make broth. You have a different method. Can you talk about that a bit?
Oh, yeah, thanks. That's fun. Because actually that's on the cover of both of these recipes books, so good to point it out. So the real answer, the quick answer from a food perspective is you can buy, broths and stuff, and I don't know what people are going to buy, and they're very different across brands, and they can have like really raging sodium levels and flavors that maybe won't go great with whatever it is that I'm planning on. So the one answer is that I can control the flavor. But the other like practical example, just like we were talking about my CSA, everything comes down to like logistics and operations. Early on, when I was only making like probably 40, 50 quarts, which sounds like so ridiculously small to me now. It's hilarious. Like that was like a few big pots. Now I have like 6 or 7, crazy amounts of soup that I make. But I would be making like broth and stock to then make soup with, because remember, I just come off my Catalan cookbook, which I was like basically the mouthpiece for a chef. So I had his voice in my head when I had immediately started wanting to make soup for my friends, and I was like, oh well, Chef Daniel would really want me. He would say I'm only like legit if I'm doing this with my own stock and broth. Like that's where this has to start. And so I made all this broth and stock, and I was like, oh my god, this is soup to make soup. This is too much. And like the pots were really big and unwieldy, and I was just sort of like, ugh, washing this to wash this, again, I'm just not into it. And like storing all that until I'm like using it again. It was just too many variables. And so I just was like, my whole job for a decade was like solving kitchen issues for home cooks. Like there is a solution here. And also, secondly, peasant cooks like on the countrysides of various, cultures, which is where a lot of soups come from. It's like a peasant food, practical solutions of getting rid of things from harvests. They would just throw a soup, like a bone, into a pot, and the stock would sort of be created with just water, water and like aromatics. And so I was like, this is silly. This is not also just the stock and broth thing. I think it's like kind of a fallacy. Of course, if you make my recipes using stock or broth, it's just going to add a like different dimension to it. It's not going to ruin it. But I wanted to make it with water. And like I said, to control the flavors, but then also not to make a stock or anything beforehand. And so I think of my flavor building as kind of like on-ramps of different places where flavor can come in. And I do that through like, in the first book especially, like homemade spice mixes. I roast vegetables and puree them as like the flavor base of a soup. I drew on methods like in Indian curries, for example, they blend like onions, ginger, and garlic, like doing things like that where that actually becomes like the gravy of the soup and like really focusing on like the viscosity of the finished soup itself. So it has like a good mouthfeel and all that kind of thing. I got really, really into all that. But so, and then like always finish with acid. So lemon juice or cider vinegar. And that really comes from, it's informed by the fact that I had a homeopath at the time who he basically was like, don't use any other acids in your life except for lemon juice and cider vinegar are like the only two that he really wanted me to use. And so I just got used to cooking with them. And I was like, hey, these two are like, you don't need actually anything else. I don't have anything else in my pantry. And so it came from those two factors.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. Very cool.
Weird, right? Can I ask you a question now?
Okay.
Okay. So I listened to a lot of audiobooks. Like I'm a lady who spends 9 hours in a car delivering a soup by myself. So I listen to audiobooks, but I've only listened to like, like fiction. And so reading a recipe, talk to me about what that's like.
Well, I feel like the things I really remember are that almost all of your recipes start with exactly the same, like, first sentence, which is heat oil in a large, heavy pot over medium heat until hot. So I feel like I said that 80 times.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and then 160 because of the
Instant Pot.
The Instant Pot ones, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Wow, what else?
I'm sure you absorbed things that, like, I think of, they're like a recipe style, because it's important actually that everything's consistent, because you don't want, like in one recipe, you don't want it to say that the onion sauteed over medium heat for 12 minutes. And then in another recipe, it says it actually took 6 minutes, or, so sentences do often have to stay the same. That's also why I'm thinking like, man, it'd be real boring to read a recipe, because I'm also wondering, do you like have a sense of, are you a cook? Do you have a sense of the food? And do you like, when you're talking about these things, do you actually like when you're listening to a piece of fiction, you can like picture how the person looks and like the setting that they're in? Are you picturing anything when you're reading this? Or...
Yeah, I'd say I'm a home cook, so I did. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I appreciated, earlier on you talked about, you mentioned it already that like your soups are water based. And so, yeah, you kind of talked about like, use like tap water's fine unless you think your tap water tastes weird.
Yeah.
Or, like,
well, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And I also enjoyed all of the kind of bean commentary. And I feel like I'm kind of a bean amateur. So,
a lot of people are scared of dry beans, which I think is funny because I don't know. I've always known them. Like I've never not known them. And to me, a can of beans, like which amounts to basically a cup of cooked beans, it's like $1.25 or up to like $3 or $4 now, probably. When you can get a whole bag of beans for that price, and it's like exponentially more than that. It never has made sense to me. Not like, and also same as the water comment, you can like cook a bean to your desired consistency, and which you can't in a can. I often find them either to be mushy or like, not what I want, or already broken apart and stuff. And I'm like, oh no, I want an intact bean. Like that's not what I wanted here. I really don't use canned beans. So for me, it was I was like, how do I impart all of this? What I just know? How do I impart that in a like kind of friendly, not scary way? And it just involved like tips and it's just like do it. Like the reason why I think the Instant Pots are great is because like if you do forget to soak your beans overnight, then you have like a version that you can just like immediately jump to, and dinner will be spared.
Okay, speaking of my bean noviceness, when I was buying my kabocha squash, on a whim, I picked up a bag of adzuki beans.
Oh, nice.
Do you have any advice for a soup I could make with those?
Well, I don't know if you're talking about beans. In the back of the book that you're currently leafing through, she's holding a copy of Soup Club. There's a bean glossary, and if you look at adzuki beans, you can sub them in for anything with small red beans. It's listed there. That's the reason why I said it that weird, cryptic way. But it's basically like a small red bean. I mean, like they appear in desserts and things like that. So people think that they're like a sweet bean. Nope, it's just a bean. Just a bean.
Great.
Yep. Texture-wise, I find them to be somewhat similar to a small red bean. I don't think that they're like significantly softer or anything like that. So yeah, they're like a pretty solid standard bean.
Okay, good.
Versatile.
I feel good about my purchase.
Yes.
While I was reading your book aloud, which was probably a year and a half ago, maybe. It was definitely summer. It was definitely summer.
Did it take you like a year? I would imagine it feels like a lot.
Usually probably 6 months, 6 or 9 months, I would guess.
Goodness.
But I made a recipe, which I wonder if I can find. But I remember
Tell me anything about it, and I can probably tell you which one it is.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
I bought an ingredient I had never bought before, which was millet.
Ooh. So you probably did the farinata.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was it. Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
I
think actually when you met me at the farmer's market, I might have. No.
You were making mulligatawny.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Great. You remember. I don't. I have the hole in my brain and you don't. That's why. Farinata is really fun. It's a traditional Italian soup that is traditionally made with polenta, thickened with polenta. So it's kind of like a porridge style soup. And this goes back to like my wanting to turn inside out, what people think of as like vegan soup. I want it to be filling. I want it to be like a whole meal. All of my soups are like that. They often have like big chunks of vegetables or whatever, but that's what farinata is so lovely. I feel like it's like putting on a sweater of a soup. It's like an awesome winter soup. Oh my God, so you made that in summer?
Or maybe it was fall.
Okay,
Yeah.
I hope so, because summer, I'm like, wow, I'm just sweating thinking about that.
Yeah, I had never cooked with millet, never bought it. I was like, I think this feels like birdseed.
It is
right?
birdseed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely is birdseed, but it's like an ancient grain. It's been around forever. Yeah. Actually, like, full-on whole cultures, like I want to say parts of Africa are like sustained by growing and eating millet. So no, it's like we do, Americans. It's not in the American diet, but you can definitely find it.
Yes,
and you can get like weird and fun about these like various grains, and it's not like also wheat derived, which like spelt and other things that people are drawn to. I'm like, if you're gluten free, it doesn't really work, But millet is really cool. I discovered. When I gave up corn, my husband is from the South. He's from Alabama. And I was like, oh, crap. What am I going to do? Cornbread, I can't make cornbread anymore. Ugh. So I made a millet bread. And I was like, oh, this is exactly like corn. It really is like cornmeal. I mean, I grind it up a little bit more because otherwise it gets glutinous and kind of stays as a unit. But if you grind it up, it can be grits. It can be so. In that way, it's a perfect substitute for polenta in farinata. I love that you made that farinata. It's so good. And in the second book, there was this millet recipe that this is how weird you want to have an idea, a window into my soup lady brain is this is where my soup recipes come from sometimes. I was making this side dish from a cookbook. I want to say it was Matter Jaffrey's book, and it was a classic Indian side dish of millet and then like it had like spices and mung beans simmered into it was like a pilaf type thing.
Yeah.
And it had like warming spices like onion, mung, and millet like all fluffed together, and on top you like served like fresh chopped tomato and like cilantro, and it had like lemon and I was like, oh my gosh, this would be a delicious soup. It's like what I thought of when I ate it. That's like, I know, right? I'm totally nuts.
How do I soupify this?
I know. Well, that's why in my second book I have a recipe called millet and mung, and it's literally a farinata, an Italian farinata that I like twisted to. And which is only weird because I happen to make the soup out of millet. So like it has nothing to do with an original farinata, but it has something to do with my weird farinata, you know?
Interesting.
I know, right?
Wow. Okay, soup lady. What what are you cooking these days, or what's an ingredient you're obsessed with these days?
Well, this week for Soup Club, which I just brought you, I brought you my broccoli and rice soup, which is what I gave my members this week. That one also secretly has mung beans in it too. You like roast mung beans and then you grind them up for like protein and put it in the base of the soup. Anyway, that's not answering your question. That's just something that really lived in my world this week. I am very excited these days to work a lot with miso. I've been doing that a lot at home. I put like miso into a lot of things. I'm appreciating the chili crunch phase that people are crisp, especially Seattle. We've got a really good brand that's Seattle based. I don't know if you know it. Kari Kari.
Oh, I don't think I've
If
had
you
it.
don't know that, you have to get it.
Okay.
They sell it at Booklarder, sells my books and where I do my events and stuff. But awesome local Seattle brand. And also, like, if anyone listens to this not in Seattle, you can like definitely get it on their website. I think they're small business, female owned, really great.
Nice. Wow. That seems good for winter too.
Yeah. So I have a couple miso is one that I'm playing with a lot. And my kids, they're really into rice cakes and sticks. Have you ever had, they're like really dense, almost like bubble gum almost texture. They're
like mochi?
Kind of. Yeah, exactly. They're dense like that. But they're like savory and like making a saute out of veggies with that, and often finished with like a miso butter type situation is really kind of a dish that my family's really loving now. But yeah, rice cakes are making a big appearance in the Wright household lately. It's like a movie night, bowls of rice cakes and veggies, and
nice.
I think I got that originally from Momofuku back like 20 plus years ago. But then Hetty McKinnon, more recently, like I was flipping through her book that I love so much and saw that she used them in a couple of places. And I was like, yes, I'm so excited. Rice cakes is so great.
Do you make the rice cakes?
No. It's a package of, they're like kind of dried. You often find them in the refrigerated portion of an Asian market, but they're very hard, and you kind of steam them, and you'd be shocked that like when you steam them for just moments of just like residual steaming with like covering a lid over vegetables, just the steam from them softens it from these like truly like could cut a piece of paper, hard pasta type texture, really thick. Then it becomes like soft and chewy and delicious. Delightful.
Wow.
So you got a weird answer to a random question.
I'll have to keep my eyes peeled. Wow.
Yeah, but miso is one that I would love to play with more in my soups and stuff. And I do have a soup that has miso in it in the second cookbook, but it again is like the same stock answer of like, well, and I also have no recipes with tofu in them for this also same reason of like, I don't know what stuff people are getting. And like, it also feels pretty specific in terms of like taste and access. It's not a very common ingredient, and it might turn people away. Yeah.
Oh, okay. My last question for you is, how many times a week do you and your family eat soup?
I eat soup probably in some form or another, like whether it's whatever. Probably every day.
Every day.
But my family, I only subject them to it once a week because I think if I did it more than that, there would be an actual riot in my household. But yeah, definitely Tuesday is my soup day. On Tuesday evenings when I come home and I'm like pretty racked from the day, I just sort of serve them the leftovers. It's like delightful soup. And that's the day that my bread delivery happens. So we have like the freshest bread, which I don't eat. They eat. And fresh soup and fresh bread. And they deign to eat that. I say that, I joke. They actually are really lovely. I mean, yes, I'm not joking about the frequency of soup. If I serve them soup for dinner, for lunch, they'll eat it every day. They don't care. But for dinner, they like if I did it for more than once a week. And, but then also, secret answer to your question of like, I am very good at turning soup into other things. Because what is soup if not kind of a sauce? You know what I mean? Like you can braise stuff in it. I strain it sometimes to use like, if it's a really brothy soup, to use the broth to like say cook rice in, and then the vegetables like saute it with like tofu in my case, or like turn it into something else. So I can get really, really creative even with yes. Yeah. So I'm like, I have these soup leftovers, but my family won't eat it anymore. So and I hate leftovers. I will never eat like the same thing the same way twice. Like I hate that. I grew up in a house where like my dad was the cook of the house, and he did not have that problem. So we would just eat the same, like the actual same thing over and over. And I was not really a fan. So I have deep sympathy that I will never submit my people that I cook for to that. Unless they ask for it. So silly.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much.
So this
Caroline.
was like a lot of soup information for you. So you've really stepped into my world. I'm kind of feeling for you. It's like it's like a weird, really weird thing to process. I understand.
It's fun to get a peek into the world of the soup lady of Seattle. Yeah.
A very kooky, because it's like but it's not like, I don't think it's not generic soup information. It's like exactly my weird and specific and creative way of looking at it, which I think is a strange water for like someone to swim in for a moment. So I'm really feeling very sympathetic to you at the moment.
Oh my goodness. No, it was a pleasure.
Okay,
Thank you so much for talking with us.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Soup Club is in process as an audiobook at the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. It'll have the class ID DBC 30253. We'll let you know in a later episode when it's available for download. If you have any questions or comments about the library, or to see if you qualify for our services, visit WTBBL.org or leave us a voicemail at 206-615-0400 or toll free at 800-542-0866. This episode of Literary Notes is a production of the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library, based in Seattle, Washington. I'm your producer, Nathan Ureta. Thanks for listening.